welcome to another episode of
Health and Wellness 360 with TFal Chi.
our mission is to empower you to be the very best version of yourself.
By providing you with practical and tangible tools to live a healthy lifestyle.
To learn more about us, go to www.tfalandchi.com.
And now, enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, guys.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining us from. Hello, and thank you for joining us this Saturday.
Yes, good to see you guys. Thank you for being here today.
Good to see you. Please let us know where you're joining us from. Type in where you're joining us from. We're happy to be here. This is our fourth show. Thank you so much for supporting us, for coming and joining us. And we're super excited for this show. So, as brief intro, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, my name is TFal. I am an infectious disease physician, an internist, a podcaster, an author, and a wellness coach. And I'm joined by my husband, Chi.
Yes, and I'm Chi, and I'm a health and wellness expert, and with decades of experience, helping people become the best versions of themselves, working with people with chronic disease, obesity, high blood pressure, and so on and so forth. So many, many years of working in this space. So good to be here, and I'm happy for it. And we're shooting off site today. We're not home, so we're just taking some time off to get some rest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and as we go through today's show, we'll be talking about gut health. And so I'm going to ask you, actually, before we go into that, just want to be able to talk about what our mission is.
Correct.
As TFal and Chi. Our whole idea and what we would like to do is to be able to give back to the community and to be able to close gaps in terms of people who have obesity, who have challenges with health and wellness. You can always find us at www.tfalandchi.com. Share any questions or any challenges you might have. Book a free discovery call with us. We're happy to talk with you. All right. So visit our site, support us, and help support us in this fight. We're looking forward to talking with you sometime.
Yes. And today we have an exciting show for you. We're going to be talking about gut health. Gut health, and our Making Make Sense segment is going to be about waist circumference and why our waist size matters. And it's more than cosmetic. So we've heard in the last couple of years, maybe a couple of years, about gut health. A lot of things about the importance of our gut. People have talked about the gut as a second brain. We know that there's a whole lot that's going on in our gut beyond digestion, and trillions and tens of trillions of bacteria that live in our gut, and how it is important to have a healthy gut in terms of our overall health. A happy gut, healthy gut is a happy life. So this show, we're going to be talking about gut health, making make sense, waist circumference, and really, hopefully, at the end of the show, you understand how important it is, the importance of gut health, and how to make your gut healthy, your internal fitness, getting it on. Yeah. So right away, we're going to dive right in, and I'm going to ask Chi the very first question.
Sure.
How important, why is gut health important?
Of course, TFal, thank you for that question. So we know that you have over 10 times more bacteria in your gut than you have cells, actually. So why is gut health important? So what you eat becomes you. Your gut begins in your mouth and ends in your big colon, right? So you want to make sure that what you eat in terms of you have good bacteria and bad bacteria within your gut. So you want to make sure there's a balance in there. Your good bacteria has to be always up, your bad bacteria down, because that determines how you feel, your mood, the way you act, and your overall wellness. So that's the importance of this show, is trying to make that correlation between what you eat, your gut, and your overall wellness and how you feel.
Wow. So you really just hit on that gut microbiome.
Correct.
And how important it is to be diverse.
Exactly.
That diversity. So diversity matters in the gut, like it matters everywhere else. But really, that diversity, where the balance between good and bad and the impact and all that. And I know you're going to delve into some of those other things.
Sure.
So our immune system is in our gut. 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So sometimes, when you talk about you don't feel good, you don't feel great, there's a lot going on beyond just digesting food absorbing your nutrients, and then eliminating waste and all of that stuff. So
yeah, and also issues of energy levels and things like that. So energy levels and also inflammation in your body and things like that. So whenever those symptoms pop up, you may want to ask yourself, is a problem in my gut? Right? What I'm eating, does it have an impact? So I'm going to ask you, TFal, as a physician in this space and what you do, what are the symptoms of, poor gut health when we're not getting what we need to eat to, do that? What are the symptoms?
Yeah, so 70% of the symptoms of a poor gut health are symptoms that can be within the GI tract or in your gastrointestinal digestive tract, and symptoms outside of that. And I'm going to tell you personally, I know when I had poor gut health, and those symptoms include, excessive bloating, irregularities, constipation. Sometimes, people have alterations in their bowel habits. It's hard to sleep sometimes, belching. So there are symptoms within the GI tract when there's an imbalance between your bad and good bacteria, and then symptoms outside of your GI tract.
So you talk about your GI tract. So is this the ecosystem within your gut?
Yes.
And the importance of that ecosystem.
Correct.
And the diversity in that. Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Okay. When that balance is off, and we think about the balance being off sometimes when people have taken antibiotics. You take a course of antibiotics, it wipes out bacteria, and then it allows growth of bad bacteria or candida or yeast and things like that. The same thing goes on with sometimes with what we put in with food. When that balance is off, there's a lot of symptoms with excessive bloating and constipation. It's important to know that bloating is not normal, right?
No.
It's not. So that it's our body telling us there's something off, and that's that. And then outside of the GI tract, sometimes poor gut health manifests in a lot of things, like you talked about: excessive tiredness,
correct,
fatigue, joint aches, poor sleep, because there's a lot of sensing between the gut and the brain. So joint inflammation, a lot of things that I personally had. Right. And when you alter your what you put in and feed your good bacteria, your body's getting the nutrients it needs and things feel better. So there are lots of symptoms that could be tied to poor gut health.
Awesome. So so you guys have heard that already. So the idea of what you eat actually matters, right?
Yes.
So what you put in your system determines a lot of things. Your mood, in terms of things like fight or flight. The idea may be in your gut.
Yes.
Feelings of feeling tired, listlessness, and things like that. The issue may be in your gut. So remember that what you eat determines a whole variety of things. So it's very, very key.
Right. And that leads me to that next question. So you've talked about so what foods are good for gut health?
Awesome. So thank you for
that
give me
question. Like a list.
Yeah, the list is a huge list out there, but we'll just get a few things here. So vegetables, super important. Raw nuts, super important. Sauerkraut, if you eat sauerkraut, things like kimchi. So it's very, very important that remember this, if it rots, it's good for you. Remember that, if it rots. So can you put that up? I just want that producer. We have a wonderful producer, Alice. Alice, if you could put that up on the screen. So if it rots, it's good for you. Just remember that all the time. So you want to think about this for a moment.
Yeah.
If you're doing compost, many people do compost, right? So if you use things like fruits and vegetables, raw fruits and vegetables from your home to grow compost, that plant is going to grow and mature very well. If you use baked goods and poor food choices and hamburgers and things like that in your dirt, that plant will not grow.
It will die, actually.
It will die. So it's important to grow, to feed your good bacteria. Your good bacteria are like soldiers in your body. They come out to protect you. They come out to provide good hormones in your system. They come out to mitigate things like obesity. There are studies out there that show that people with good gut bacteria versus those without, there's a huge difference in their weight, and the way they feel, and their waist circumference.
Yes.
It's a huge difference. So what you eat, remember, is very important to determine that space.
So you've talked about fermented foods, you've brought that up, you've talked about nuts, vegetables, fiber, those things, right?
Yeah.
Fiber in terms of feeding that bacteria. So it's really important. You talked about that balance and the soldiers because they're there for a reason.
Yeah, thank you actually for bringing
Yes.
that point up in terms of fiber, right? So in terms of fiber, the importance of having fiber in your diet. I know many of us out there juice, many of you juice out there as well. You want your soluble fibers cleanse your cell structure. Your insoluble fiber helps to move things along, right? So if you're dealing with issues of, constipation and things like that, your insoluble fibers, like when you juice, pop comes out, and that is what you call insoluble fiber. The soluble fiber is about 70% that you can extract from fruits and juices when you make them. That is 70% that helps to cleanse your cell structure. So you can have either or both. If you're having challenges with digestive issues, then you want to include your insoluble fibers within your diet. So it's a huge thing. It helps in the gut, and also think about the way your arteries are. If you have a lot of fiber in there, think about putting a sponge through a pipe and pushing it out through. That is exactly what fiber does in your gut. It helps to cleanse your arteries, your blood system, and all that. Okay,
that's awesome.
Sure. So let me ask you, TFal.
Yes.
We talk about prebiotics and probiotics. A lot of us sometimes are confused about what is a prebiotic, what is a probiotic, what is the importance of either of them.
Yes.
Can you share what that means?
Yeah, so that's a very common question.
And I know, before we go, I know we have a question. We're going to answer this question in a second. So producer, if you want to pop that question up there in a second, we'll get that. But go ahead with that question.
Great, thank you. So simple way to think about it is prebiotics are foods that are good for your good bacteria. Prebiotics are things that your good bacteria feed on, right? So things like fiber, vegetables, things that are there that are good and nourish for your good bacteria, almonds, things like that are good for your good. So those are prebiotics, right? Probiotics are the good bacteria themselves. So those are things that deliver good bacteria into your gut. It can come in form of foods like you mentioned, the fermented foods. Correct. It can come in form of yogurt with active cultures of bacteria. It can come in terms of kefir, right? Miso, sauerkraut, things like that already have bacteria in them that are delivered. It can also be in probiotic supplements that people take that deliver large volumes of billions of bacteria into your gut. So the probiotics are the good bacteria delivered into your gut, and the prebiotics are good foods that actually nourish your good bacteria, and that's what they're there for. And so those are the difference between pre and probiotics. And I don't know if the questions are up here yet, but while we're waiting for those questions, I'll ask you the next one.
Of course.
So how does juicing impact my gut health? Because you brought that up about juicing.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So just a couple of things here about juicing, since we're talking real quickly about juicing. So there's a huge difference between juicing and making smoothies and what you use to make them. If you're using a blender, you're making smoothies. If you're juicing, you're using an extractor, right? There's a huge difference, and you can't have dairy while you're juicing, if that makes sense. So if you add dairy to the product, then you are then making a smoothie. And juicing, for the most part, you're using fruit, raw vegetables and raw fruit to make this. And there is a difference. It extracts the pulp. When you're juicing, you get your soluble fiber, and the insoluble is separated. But you can eat the insoluble fiber if you want. You can bake it, throw it in your oven, and put sea salt in there and eat those. So there's a big difference between juicing and making smoothies. Want to make sure everyone understands that, because sometimes there's a huge confusion about what's going on there.
Awesome. Yeah. That is great. Thank you. And we have a question. What about the need for hot peppers, hot sauce desired for this? You want to take that?
Yeah, let me take that. Yeah, so thank you for that question, Carolyn Price. Thank you for being on our show today. So the idea of having hot peppers in your meal is super important. Peppers have a component called capsaicin. Capsaicin helps to burn fat. So if you're getting, peppers in your diet, it's a good thing. You're doing an awesome job. Except, if you're dealing with issues of ulcer and things like that, then you may want to check with your doctor in terms of how much peppers you get. Well, hot peppers are super important for burning fat in your system.
And you've got right on.
Okay. So I'm going to add, so we're going to go on to the next question here. Nicole, we see your question. We're going to answer that in a second. Thank you for that. So how does when we eat and what we eat impact our gut health?
It does. Just like, our gut bacteria have their own what we call circadian rhythm when there's a time of work and the time of repair. So it's very important that we give our gut time to rest, because these tens of trillions of bacteria have to digest, absorb, extract nutrients, and they need to repair. They need to repair and renew. So when we eat, when we stop eating at a certain time, at dinner time or at nighttime, and allow our gut to rest when we're asleep, that helps them repair and relax and to do what they need to do well. So it really does matter, not eating round the clock, kind of going back to the way all these things you talked about, pepper, eating, is what we did back in the day before, refrigeration and stuff. People ate, at nighttime they went to bed, they woke up in the morning, they had to go hunt a little bit or before they found something to eat. So that's a time where it really matters that we're not snacking excessively. We're not eating through the night. We're allowing our gut to rest, the bacteria to do what they do and to regenerate.
You said something about regeneration.
Mm-hmm.
Why is cell regeneration important? Because we know that, oftentimes we're shedding skin,
Mm-hmm.
we're regenerating. Why is that important in terms of our future self and regenerating our cells?
That is amazing. That is what we need to do to repair and renew and cell turnover. So what you want is that cell turnover and making new cells and really having that proliferate. So just like we think about turning over in terms of our skin cells, brain cells, all of those things, it's important for our gut to be able to do that too. And we know that when the sleep is disturbed, it affects our gut health. Stress affects our gut health, a lot of things. Because like you said, it's an ecosystem that is diverse, that is doing its work. And when things are off, in addition to the GI tract, things like autoimmune diseases, allergies have been linked to that. Obesity, diabetes is when that imbalance is going on. Yeah.
Awesome. Fantastic. And I think, so producer, I think there was a question that flashed up on the screen. I think it's out there, but if you can pull that up, that would be great. So we're going to go on to our next segment here, which is rapid fire. So let's see if the question came up here.
I've been checking.
Rheumatoid.
Yes. So great. Thank you. And I think I just mentioned that there is increasing link between our gut, our central nervous system, and inflammatory diseases. So there is an increasing link with autoimmune diseases, including things like rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, where that diversity of the bacteria might be off. Some of it is by medications that sometimes people are on that changes the balance. So it is important to actually look at what we're putting in and the things we talk about, unless there's a contraindication, right? Vegetables, fiber, oat, avoiding processed foods and things like that will help a whole variety of inflammatory conditions, including rheumatoid arthritis, obviously in conjunction with managing with your primary care provider or rheumatologist. But gut health is becoming more important than we ever knew. And that second brain phenomenon is real. There's a lot going on with the sensing. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So it's super, super important here in terms of it. So remember, sometimes, if you're sick and you've been in a course of antibiotics, sometimes you find that you get sick again.
Yeah.
Not too long after that, because all your good bacteria are wiped out, right? So if you've been on a course of antibiotics, unless it's contraindicated, it's important to build up your good bacteria as quickly as you can. Sauerkraut, kimchi, green leafy vegetables, almonds, make sure they're raw for the most part, not sodium. So awesome. Moving on along here. Hope you guys, we love your questions. Keep them coming.
Let us know where you're from. Yes.
For those of you who were here last week and the past couple of weeks, we had a rapid fire session and I was on the hot seat. So today, I'm going to put my wife on the hot seat today. So is this a rapid fire segment? And we're going to keep going right here. So TFal.
Okay, rapid fire. I'm hot seat.
Yeah, and it's going to be burning today. So all carbs are bad, correct?
No.
Why?
No. We need carbohydrates in our diet, in our nutrition. So this is not carbs are off, none of that stuff. Carbs are needed for energy, they feed our cells, all of that. It's really important. Not all carbs are bad. The carbs that we want to avoid are the processed added sugar carbs, the things that have been stripped of fiber, white bread, pasta, things like that, the cakes, the baked goods, all of that. All of those are added sugars and carbs. Natural carbs come in Even our beans, our legumes have carbohydrates. Vegetables have a lot of carbohydrates. Fruits, tons of carbohydrates. So this is not all carbs are bad. We need a lot of carbs. The vegetables, the fruits, they're good for our system. So the answer is no, not all carbs are bad. The processed ones, I know.
Yeah. So you want complex carbs and limit simple carbs, all right? You want complex and limit simple. So next question for you, TFal.
Okay.
So it would take months and months and years for me to change my gut, my gut microbiome if I'm suffering from, an imbalance in my system. Is that correct?
No. Actually, we now know from research that within 3 to 4 days of changing what you put into your flora, you can start to change your gut flora. It may take you a couple of months to build it to where it needs to be, but within 3 or 4 days, you can make a difference. So this is not like I have to wait. Just like antibiotics can wipe things out in a couple of days, when you start to eat things well and put in the right things, the right prebiotics that your body needs that feed, because there's something we say, what you feed grows.
That's right. What you feed grows. And
so if you're feeding your good bacteria with what they need, they will be there for you and they will grow and they will take over and become the major population. So a couple of days, we know within research, you can start to change the flora.
We have about 8 minutes, 9 minutes to the end of our show here. So we have to move quickly here. So so I can eat processed foods if I eat my veggies, right?
The answer is no.
So want to make that quick, 10 seconds?
No. Because it's like you're feeding your good bacteria with your veggies and all the good stuff, processed food, add additives, preservatives, your body doesn't know what to do with that, and the bad bacteria start to proliferate again. So if you're doing it, you want to do your good stuff.
Awesome. So there's so many other questions we have, and if you have other questions, remember, you can follow us on Facebook, on Insta to pop those questions in there, but we're going to move along with the show, and we're going to try to answer them, okay? So thank you for bringing them up. So now the next segment, what we're going to do here is just wrap up real quickly, the importance of gut health. Gut health is super important. You want to make sure you have a good balance in there. You want to make sure you have your soldiers fighting for you. Good raw vegetables, good legumes in there. Beans is super important. Beans is a really good one in there. Yeah. So legumes are important. Green leafy vegetables are important. Sauerkraut, kimchi, peppers, and things like that. They're very important for your gut health. And now, as we move on, so because we know that gut health impacts a lot of things.
Yeah, the tryptophan.
So you want to get things like, your turkey in there, it adds tryptophan that even produces melatonin that helps you sleep and things like that. So having a good balance in there is super important, right? So as we move along here, we're going to go to our next segment, which is
Make it make sense.
All right, this is where we break it down. Yeah, that's right.
Yes, thank you, Ellis.
Thank you, producer. So this is where we break it down for you completely and just kind of make sense in a short period of time. And today we're going to be talking about waist circumference and why that is important and why it's important for you to watch your waist circumference and have it within the normal limits. So TFal, I'm going to ask you, why is waist circumference important? What should the numbers be, men, women, and where should we keep an eye on that?
Okay, thank you so much, Chi, for that question. Sure. Our waist matters. Hashtag waist matters. Yeah. And not just cosmetics. More than ever, we know that waist circumference is probably the single biggest predictor of a lot of outcomes. And that's because when we have a large waist circumference, we'll talk about what the good numbers are. That means there is fat usually deposited, and the fat is in our organs, right? And fatty liver, we know that the liver processes a lot of things. So when your waist circumference is large, it increases your risk of diabetes, insulin resistance, heart disease, high cholesterol, fatty liver, liver disease, and increases the risk of other things like dementia. So other people now, including cardiologists, are starting to say this is something we need to be measuring in our clinics. We can do it at home by ourselves, but it is a predictor of bad outcomes because of where that fat is. We always used to say a moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips. More important is what's going on in our waist. It is a serious issue, and the correlation has been there between waist circumference and bad outcomes. So it's important to know that.
But you're talking about this, TFal. So what should the numbers be? Because it's important for our audience to understand what those numbers should be for men and women.
Okay.
Can you share that real quickly?
The guidelines do say that for women, the waist circumference should be less than 35. For men, less than 40. again, the lower that number is, the better. The reason those cut points of 35 and 40 were put in place is once you exceed that number, 35 for women and 40 for men, your risk of what we call metabolic syndrome is high. You made the correlation. And metabolic syndrome is waist circumference, high lipids or triglycerides and cholesterol, insulin resistance, diabetes. So anything above 35 or 40 puts you at risk for a lot of future and current illnesses. So you want it to be lower than that. So 35 is the max, 40 is the max for men, and you definitely want it to be lower than that. So the lower it is, the better in terms of waist circumference.
Super important. So you want to think about, the organs involved that, like my wife just shared, right? So, your liver, your kidneys and all that, and, making sure that you have the least amount of fat in those areas. And one very important factor here is as well is stress helps to build cortisol that gets deposited around our hips as well. So making sure, again, that you're eating foods that provide you good bacteria will also help eliminate stress. Right?
Yes, it does.
Doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Exactly.
And I was going to ask you this question, even though you'd put me on the hot seat.
Sure.
So before I ask you your question, how do you measure waist circumference? Just go above your hip bones on both sides, and then that is your natural waist. Exhale, don't hold in your breath. You want to have a good number, and that's your number that you can measure at home and continue to track. Simple tape measure waist circumference, have that number, and know that everything that you do impacts that. So the last question I have in this section is, what can I do to work on my waist circumference? And you've alluded to that.
Of course. So you want to make sure that, number one, you're getting good sleep. Sleep is very important. Oftentimes we think sleep is super important in order to keep your weight down. Exercise. And exercise means exerting yourself. You don't have to be in a gym to exercise, right? So if you're active doing yoga, if you're walking is a super way of exerting yourself. So make sure you're exerting yourself. And how you do this, there are two ways you know that you're exerting yourself. You're exhaling from your mouth, that releases carbon dioxide. So every time you're exhaling and letting fat out. And the other way is by excreting fluid from your skin. So if you bring your blood pressure, if you bring your your heart rate up, you're going to exhale from your mouth. You're going to excrete fluid from your skin. So very important, right? So those two things: exercise, good sleep, a good diet helps to make sure your waist circumference stays lean, and having good support system around you to eliminate the stressors as well.
Great. Sleep,
2 minutes.
exercise, eating well, managing your stress, those are things, and knowing that number. And again, measure your waist circumference and start to have a discussion with your primary care provider. Have you been checked for the other things? We talked about our 5: cholesterol, insulin for diabetes, blood pressure, lipids, and all that. So waist circumference is such a big predictor of our health that we need to take it important.
Awesome.
And so, as we're rounding out now.
We're rounding up as we always do. And remember, we have 2 minutes to close out our show. We love you guys showing up all the time here to support us. Remember where to find us. We're at www.tfalanchi.com, and also follow us on Facebook, follow us on Insta. Thank you for being a huge support for us. Share this message with as many people as you can, your friends and family. We're here every 2 weeks. So we want to make sure that, you're part of this fight.
Yes.
EMT, remember, we leave this with you each time. Eat, move, and think about your purpose.
Yes.
Eat, move, and think about your purpose. TFal?
Yes. And remember our 5 C's, clarity, commitment, consistency, confidence, and compassion. That will get you through and working on all of the things you need to do to optimize your health. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
And we will see you in 2 weeks, which is July 17. We'll try to answer the questions that we couldn't get to through the chat. We can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And it's really important to just think about your purpose as you do this. All right?
Keep that waist circumference down. Eat well. Spend time with those that love you and you love spending time with, so your stresses come down. Keep supporting us. We love you. Thank you for being here.
And thank you, Ellis,
thank you,
our
Ellis,
producer, for a fantastic show. Thank you so much. We're right on time.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a wonderful 4th.